Morning, everybody. It's a little over a year since we launched our first digital out-of-home network in Qatar, and it's actually less than a year since we launched our first deployment of Quividi. So to be standing here now, after such a short period of time, to be able to talk to you about that is, for us, a great achievement. I'm very grateful to the guys at Quividi for giving us that opportunity, so thank you. What we're going to do today is we're going to just, Tim and I are going to double tag. I just want to give you a little bit of context as to how, and probably more importantly, why we've done what we've done. And then Tim will take you through the far more exciting bit about what the results are and how we're using and actioning those results. So if we start with the premise, and I suppose this is the premise why we're all here, that data is important and understanding our audience is important, then we can start to better plan ourselves forward. What does that data do for us? I think it helps us think better, it helps us plan better, it helps us optimise. And that's not just us as media owners, that's everybody throughout the cycle. That's landlords, that's media owners, that's agencies, media agencies, creative agencies, clients themselves. So if we're there, then ergo, a lack of data, a lack of credible research is a lost opportunity. It's not just a missed opportunity, it's a lost opportunity. That's higher wastage, that's lower efficiencies. You know, landlords, media owners, there's lost opportunities there. It makes the whole process harder. And I think one point that is always overlooked, certainly from a media owner and a landlord perspective, is that without credible research, without good data, actually our job is about growing networks. It's about maturing networks. It's about making our market better. It's making our market more attractive. And if we don't have good data, if we don't have credible research, the justification for the investment that we need to put in order to do that becomes considerably harder. So, in the Middle East, and this is really interesting for those, anybody who's got any experience of it will maybe have a degree of sympathy with us. Data, research is a lost opportunity. It's very hard work. I'm going to focus a little bit on what we're all here for, out of home and digital out of home. Everything is based upon an anecdotal sell. I like that site. My predecessors like that site. I know lots of traffic goes past that site. Or an emotive sell. I drive past it every day. I go to that mall every day. Therefore, it's good, bad, or indifferent, depending on entirely on your personal view of it. We have very little real traffic data for traditional out-of-home. Digital is predominantly looked at and viewed and planned on footfall, and that footfall data is not always 100% accurate. So what we don't have is anything that is verified, that is independently verified, actually is probably the more important way of putting it. And we at Elan, we've got that, we've understood that, and we know that not even mid-term, short-term, that's not sustainable. So we've taken it upon ourselves in our region to take that as a challenge, embrace it, and try, in our way, to do something about that. So, before we can do any of that, we needed a network. So, 2 years ago, we pitched two of the largest, newest super malls in the Gulf region, in the GCC, both of which were in our home territory, luckily in Qatar. We looked at this on a basis to go from a standing start, 0 to 100. We were lucky, we could look around the world, we could take our experiences, we could look at what other people have done, and we could go in and say, right, we want to put the best technology in, we want to put the best equipment in, we want to put aesthetically the best looking equipment in. We believe we've done that. We've got over 240 assets that are in the ground. We've got small format, large format, and innovative formats. And again, putting something different, it's not different for the sake of being different, it's different to challenge people creatively and from a data point of view and understanding how people interact with them. 65% of our assets have Quividi software running in them. So why did we partner with Quividi? right the first. If we're going to take the challenge, create the networks, invest in those networks to put what we believe is the best in the region, then surely we ought to do the same from a data perspective, because there's very little point in investing what we've invested, setting up what we've set up, to then sell and go back to the old emotive, anecdotal sell and say, on a location basis or a like basis, I like that screen, it's pretty, therefore I want to buy it. You know, we're not going to work on that basis going forward. We have to have credible data, we have to understand what our audience are doing, where they go, what their emotion is, what their engagement is, and that drives everything forward. That drives the planning cycle. Importantly, again, in our region, it drives the creative cycle, because you know, we do have not brilliant creative generally. You know, you see a number of press ads put on a MUPI, whether it's a digital MUPI, 6-sheet in some other language, or a static one. So driving the creative process is important as driving the planning process, as driving the understanding of who our audience are, what they do, what their levels of engagement are, and what their levels of engagement could be. So our task now, you know, we're almost a year into the data cycle, a little over a year into the actual operations of the network cycle. Our job now is to, our task, if you like, is to continue to take this forward. We've done a pretty good job in our local market in Qatar. We now need to do that on a regional basis. And so it becomes bigger. More people talk about data, the more people understand how our data works and what it tells us. That's a job for us, and we're taking it on to do that on a regional basis and move forward. So I'm going to hand over to Tim now, and he's going to take you through the really exciting stuff. Actually what we've got, what we've done with it, and what we want to continue to do with it. So thank you very much for your time.
You just down button.
It's just, I'm using the right button.
Okay, good morning everybody. So as Jamie said, data is what drives our media sales network, but also my part is really, and there's a lot of landlords in the room, a lot of mall landlords, is to talk about the partnerships and how we feel. In the past, it's been a missed opportunity. I've worked in airports, I've worked with malls, I've worked with the London Underground, and there aren't genuine partnerships. There are a lot more now because everybody's realised that together stronger equals better results. So again, in the Middle East, we had footfall data. Everybody's paranoid in the Middle East, so no one shares footfall data. So there is no data. So, and the clickers on the things, they don't work, and you know. So Jamie and I, our biggest challenge is to work with our mall partners, Mall of Qatar and Doha Festival City, to take them forward with confidence as well, so they can talk to their retail groups. Again, it's a Middle Eastern problem, but most of the brands that you and I know all sit under one big vertical, whether it's Al Shire Group or Apparel Group or whatever. So from a landlord perspective, they're struggling because they're negotiating with big groups and their data's not suffice, and no one's sharing the data either. So hopefully today this is a little less on the sales element. I will drop some things in there because I know there's some media owners in the room, but it's more about the partnership element of it. So how do we do it? Again, we're not saying this is the best way, far from it, that's not our position, but we decided the best way for our malls, and the way that the Middle Eastern, very conservative, remember some of the ladies are veiled, they've got burqas, this, the chaps all are on their phones, there's 99% mobile penetration in Qatar, some of the highest in the world. Some of these Qatari guys have got 3-4 phones all at once, you know, it's just crazy. So we need to find a way we can get these guys and get them monitored. So we chose with AVT, our integrator, and Esprit with Pete, to put the camera in the MUPI pods on the floor. We felt that was the best way of capturing that kind of data. At the moment, the last check we did, our cameras are analysing 120 faces a second. So that's pretty impressive, and they're just picking that up. Okay, that data, we do everything via the cloud. There are USB options, etc. We just feel that that's not live, that's not up to date, that's not dynamic. So for us, it's all done via the cloud, interacting with Broadside. That data then goes to the Quividi data lab, and then we pull it down into our control center. So this is the Elan control center in Doha. Put quite simply, this is where the magic happens. So this is where our operative guy sits with his Quividi data lab, looks at the actual adverts playing in the mall. So these are the 2 digital movies for Mall of Qatar and Doha Festival City. And using all of that data, a chap from Australia I was talking over dinner the other night used the magic word, the what if game. So let's look at what ifs. Let's start doing things. So we're not just pulling data and sending it out. We're analyzing it. We're looking at retail trends. We're looking at what's happening on an hour-by-hour basis. We're looking at ways that our clients' creative, like this, is working. Because it might look really nice on a PC when it gets sent from Leo Burnett, but when it drops in the mall, we know immediately if it's going to work. So we're already having immediate dialogue with our customers about what's going on. So everything, I guess, is live. And that, for me, I've been in outdoor nearly 16 years. That's the big step. That's why we're all really confident now. We really feel there's a renaissance going on in digital out of home. We've got some spring back in our step to challenge online because we are live automatically now. We're almost measuring clicks. So for everybody, there's something. That's the beauty of data. It depends who you are, what you're looking for, where to go. So these are all the different attributes that we measure with our data, okay? So some media owners are obsessed with impressions. Some are obsessed with the numbers of eyeballs. Some of our malls are obsessed with mood. They absolutely focus on the mood element every day of every week. What are our customers thinking about? How are they feeling? And that might be down to some of their creative to just generic areas in the mall. We can isolate this data by geolocation. So if Five Guys opens in Doha Festival City, there were queues of 20, 25 minutes to get into this restaurant. Our Moopipod was used to measure these queues because it's scanning the numbers versus other locations in the mall, but it's also measuring their mood. And trust me, it changed. So we were able to WhatsApp the GM. I was looking at that. I get an alert. I go, dear Trevor, you might want to do something. You might want to entertain them because the mood is changing. I mean, I'm not talking riots and things, but we're talking, you know, it's generally neutral, but it shifts. And this is how media owner, landlord, interacts on a daily basis, on a minute by minute. And that never happened in my time. So this is the data, this is the magic, this is what we get. So we can have it by day, attention time, dwell time, you know, impressions, eyeballs, you know, you start running ratios. We look at conversion rates. We talk to our media agencies about conversion rates. How much of their people walking by are looking at it? We're at 30, 34%. I don't think that's a bad number, particularly in a very conservative country. So it gives Jamie and I the power to negotiate with our customers, but it gives them this warm feeling that actually they're putting it in the right place. It is working. We'll look at mall copy. You know, we get more mall marketing copy now than I think any mall has ever produced in its life. We're getting it by the hour. And then we're being asked immediately, can you see if anybody's looking at that? Can you see if the Wi-Fi copy is still working? So every week, my guy is analysing the mall messages. If Wi-Fi starts to drop off, excuse the pun, it goes, and we put another piece of copy in, because if you're a customer and you're in there and you see the same static ad every day, it's like a broken window pane. It'll either bug the life out of you or you will switch off. Now, retail is detail, and you've got to sweat every asset, you've got to sweat every moment, every interaction, every memory. And this data allows you to do that. So one of the things we learned is that in Qatar they like to wear sunglasses in a mall, which everybody kind of thought was very funny, but it's an interesting point because it demonstrates the way that our customers are. They are very shy. They might have an incredible amount of wealth, but they're very shy. So we have the full Quividi interactive package inspired by the GMC campaign that was done in America, and we were super excited that we are going to bring some of this sexy stuff that we did in London to Qatar, and then we got that and we're like, they're not going to stand in front of a screen and move and whatever. So this is going to be like nudging the peanut up the hill. We're going to have to work with these guys. We might have to do it via mobile. I don't quite know how we're going to do it, but it might have to go through a third device. They're just not confident. And then obviously you've got the the wife might want to, but within Middle Eastern culture, she has to stand behind the gentleman. So is he going to move out the way? You see what I mean? So even the malls want to do this sort of stuff. They're like, Tim, how can we engage more? But when you show them that stat, they're like, okay, we might have to do it a different way. So for the media owners in the room, and I know JC Decaux here, and they're very much a pioneer of this phrase, but it's impressions and eyes. That's what we now sell. We don't sell panels. We now can go toe-to-toe with online, and we can say, okay, we have impressions. So that's the number of people in old school currency. It's what we call opportunity to see. So since we launched in April, the cameras at both my malls have picked up 98 million impressions. 29 million of those watched the ads. So that's over 2.5 seconds more. So that for me is a very, very, very big number in a very, very immature media market. 160 million worth of dwell time in front and 64 million seconds of attention. So you'll notice I'm not selling you a rate of a panel. I'm not selling you a 2-week cycle. I'm not selling you all the old nonsense. This is attention, dwell time, eyeballs, engagement. This is the stuff as a landlord, as a retailer, as a marketeer that you get genuinely, as an agency, you get genuinely excited about, because this is what we call optimization. So we are, as Jamie said, our mantra is about accountability, transparency, in a region that's not famed for it. So what we do every month without fail, to our landlords, to our retail partners, to our media agencies, our creative agencies, all as standard. At the end of the month, they get a monthly review of what happened in that mall. And you'll see here we've got average impressions per hour, because we sell by hour. We sell by location, we sell by day part, we sell by audience. In the future, we may sell by mood, who knows? But you can see the kind of data that these guys are getting, and that's going out as standard. We don't hide it. We feel the more this goes out, the more it goes into the market, the more people start to understand that you need data, you need transparency, and you need trust. One of the biggest pluses we've had since we've been in Qatar, particularly with the major retail groups who hold so much power over their landlords, they just will not advertise. They just see it that the mall should be doing it, the media owner should be doing something, and they should all get it for free. So one of our biggest wins is 3 of the top 5 retail groups in Qatar are now advertising every single weekend, without fail. 5, 6 brands come to us on a Thursday, drop this in, drop this in, drop this in, drop this in, I want here, I want there. It's not huge amounts of money, but little and often they realize with this data, so they get immediate feedback on their campaign when it's live, it's producing the retail ROI, the comfort that they know that this below the line money that was probably going to go on some in-store marketing or something like that, if it goes outside in above the line, it's a safe environment. You know, you're talking to people who are just scared of advertising. They just see it as a complete waste of money. I would rather slash my price over here than go on that lovely screen. Now they're doing it. And I think for a retail perspective, I think this is huge, because this shows that we can challenge. The other thing that this data has allowed to us do, and Jamie mentioned it very early, is our market is still very old school. So it's 60% national press. And when I say national, it's a few newspapers in Doha. But it's press. So the copy we were getting was quite frankly underwhelming, disappointing. Look, we knew it was going to happen. We knew we couldn't say, I'm sorry, I'm not running that, as tempted as Jamie and I were. So we had to do something. And this Quividi data allowed us to demonstrate that if you put crap copy up, it ain't going to work. Okay, without upsetting everybody in the relationship between the creative agency and the client and whomever and whatever. We just put these numbers up at the launch in September, and every week we send it out to our clients. We send them the top 10 advertisers in engagement for that weekend. So people are starting to get inspired and say, hey, I saw that Kareem copy. How did that do at the weekend? Is there something in the smile and this and that? So we're getting dialogue. So we know by putting these numbers up, that subtle animation on a digital screen, look at the uplift. That's nearly a 30% uplift. The interesting bit is then customers are like, but I don't want to create full video. You don't need to. There's hardly any difference between a full sexy video that would go on a large screen selling a Maserati car to very subtle, what we call standard digital out-of-home copy. So again, that's a learning for the rest of the world. That's not just a Qatar thing. You know, how far do we need to push this? Not that far is the answer. So all in all, that's me done. From zero launching last December to now, we've had 130 new brands in a tiny, tiny market. This weekend alone, I'll be serving 60 plus ads onto my networks, plus all the more stuff. So we'll be knocking out probably 100, 120 different messages in our 2 malls. As a customer, that's exciting because these Moopy pods become a window to the world. They're not just an advertisement to push you into the store. They start to become very regular, very salient, very relevant, and they become things that you look at. And I know that because I go back to Quividi and my numbers are increasing. Thank you very much.